Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and one of the biggest criticisms about electric vehicles is that they struggle in higher speed driving and colder weather. That's why, for this Christmas trip to northern Michigan, I booked this 2025 Rivian R1S dual motor max range in order to put that to the test. So I have my 6 months pregnant wife along with me on the trip. We are seeing her family, we're seeing my family. We're doing about probably over 1,000 miles when it's all said and done around the state of Michigan in snowy conditions, although I could really go for a lot more snow. I come back to Michigan in order to get real winter, gosh darn it. But we are going to see what it's like actually using this Rivian R1S here in the cold in the real world. We're already 200 miles in. We flew in about 36 hours ago, picked this car up from the airport. It had 94% state of charge, and we drove it straight out here to the west side of Michigan. And like I said, we're about 200 miles in, and the state of charge is down to, I believe it's 18%. We'll get back inside. Might be 17% at this point once we get in the vehicle. So we're going to have to do a lot of range crunching and number crunching once we get in there, but we've certainly been lower than the vehicle's 410 miles of EPA mixed driving estimate. I think about 250 or so is going to be safe, but on a full charge running at highway speeds. But we're going to see. We've got apps, we've got a better route planner, we've got PlugShare, and on top of all that, we have access to the Tesla Supercharger network thanks to... where is it here? Our Lectron Vortex Plug Supercharger to CCS1 adapter. We're going to be putting this to the test because, yeah, you have access to the Tesla Supercharger network. Technically, you can get a charger from Rivian as well, but Rivian didn't have one available to us, so we're using that one. Shout out to Lectron. We'll see that later on in the video. So let me tell you a little bit about the car, go for a little bit of a drive, and then we'll follow up throughout the trip. The one you're looking at right here, as I said, is a dual motor max range, and it has the performance upgrade. So the one you're looking at costs about $102,000, but you definitely don't need to spend that much to get essentially this useful of a vehicle, because the paint you're looking at, this Midnight, which is essentially just black, costs $3,000, and it's the most expensive paint color that Rivian makes. The standard one obviously costs nothing, and then you can get a lot of other cool colors for about $1,500 to $2,500. I don't know why Rivian PR decided to build one with a $3,000 black paint job and then a $1,000 set of black wheels. I think the Rivian R1S is a pretty attractive SUV, but I really don't care for it much in this black on black configuration. I guess it does look a little Range Rover-y, but to me, black painted wheels are not classy. They look like something that somebody would plasti dip on their Civic and then slap it on to make it look like it's got an extra 10 horsepower. I would have really liked to see the bright wheels that, again, don't cost any extra. Also, the performance upgrade is cool. It gives the R1S dual motor 665 horsepower and 829 pound-feet of torque, but without the performance upgrade, it's still plenty peppy and plenty strong. And admittedly, when I'm driving around with my wife, or if we had kids in the back or anything like that, I'm not really putting my foot to the floor regularly anyway. So I would save, I think if I remember correctly, that was about either $3,500 or $5,000 to get the performance upgrade. You could save that money. What do we got? We got about $7,000 chopped off the price right there by just choosing silver and nicer wheels and then not doing the performance upgrade. So essentially what I'm trying to say is you can get yourself into the 410 mile, 141 kilowatt hour model of this Rivian R1S for about $83,000, $84,000 or so. I think that's much more reasonable than the $102,000 that you're looking at right here. But I've been curious about the R1S for a while because I like the concept of Rivian. I like that they're doing these cool off-road adventure-ready sort of also real-world usable electric vehicles, and they haven't taken the GM approach of just shoving battery for the sake of range into the car. This has a 60 kilowatt hour smaller battery pack than something you get in like the max range Hummer or the Sierra EV. That means you've got an extra of my wife's Chevy Bolt of battery pack inside the GM models to get not that much more range. This is over 400 miles EPA mixed driving with only 141 kilowatt hours. So it should be decently efficient. Coming into the back, we've got the vehicle lifted all the way up to look cooler. You can see we've got a 50-inch TV in the back. Somebody's getting that for Christmas. And you've got the third row that can be folded up manually. You've got 2 levels of false floor below this, and then I believe you can get an optional spare tire. It is a little bit strange to me that they don't just make the spare tire standard in kind of an adventure sort of SUV like this. But you've got a goo kit in there. You can see the second row back there that is power fold down, but not power fold up. Ooh, 1500 watt max wall style outlet there, and a 12 volt as well. Some cargo storage. Okay, all right. This flips up manually. I like having that split fold setup there so you could sit on the back. Folds down. Let's see, can we get this proper? Looks like the headrests don't fold, so I would have to move my seat, or can I move this? No, all right. You can see the seats are pretty cool. You've got this cool pattern throughout. You've got the Rivian logo in 4 of the seats. Hop on up in. Do we have any sort of grab handle? No, that's, oh yeah, right up here, I guess. Pull in. See more cool accents. You've got a screen back here for climate control and a little bit of other information. We have, yep, flip down armrest with cup holders. No storage area though. Big pano sunroof that you cannot cover. However, if you pay, I believe it's about $2,500 extra, you can get one that has a dimming feature built into it. I don't believe this one has that. Got a little bit of a tablet holder, coat hook sort of looking thing there. Now I will be doing a sound system review on this as well. Check the link below if you want to see that. I haven't dug into it yet. Like I said, we just got this vehicle recently, but I believe this has the standard audio system, not the premium upgrade, so just 12 speakers. And I haven't heard great things, so we will see how that sounds. Before we get into the front, let's take a look at the front using the Rivian app. There's a button that you can pop the front open as well, but I like using the app. You can also adjust the climate, plan your trips. Let's go right here, pop this open. Open hood. They just call it a hood. Not a frunk. So you've got a pretty large amount of frunk space. A little bit hard to reach in, but again, the vehicle is lifted all the way up. And then you've got a little under frunk as well. That's where we've got our charger in our goo kit and emergency kit. Nice rubberized bit down there as well. Oh, and some pockets. That's nice. Okay, to close it manually or with the button, click right there. I think the Rivians are cool. They've with the styling, they've made a cool blend of not angry, but yet still kind of assertive. It's a fun combo. I like it. The other thing that was cool for me getting into the Rivian, especially at night, was it was one of the first vehicles in a very long time that I actually had to learn. I've driven, not exaggerating, probably about 2,000 vehicles in my life. So it's pretty difficult to stump me at this point in terms of getting into a car and hopping out and ready to go. But the Rivian required a little bit of, okay, what were some of the things that I had trouble with? Getting the cruise control going in the dark. Volume, had to find it over here to turn it down real quick once we had hopped in. Heated seat controls were pretty straightforward. Climate I was able to figure out. But yeah, a lot of stuff is buried in the center screen, and it kind of took a little, there was a learning curve, even for me, even someone who's familiar with vehicles. So we have 17% left, 68 miles of estimated range, and I know that there is a charger I want to hit, so let's zoom out with this mapping system and switch to, how would we switch to a north up? Yeah, look at that. Okay, we got some intuition going. And I believe there should be a charger right here, but it's not popping up. Okay, so these two chargers are popping. What is this one? The Tesla one? Yep. Adapter needed for the Tesla. But I know that there's a very fast charger right here. Why isn't it showing up? That's unfortunate. Okay. Well, again, such is the life of electric vehicle ownership. I'm going to pop open PlugShare, and then we can see if we're comparing PlugShare to the car. Even if I get rid of speed, there are some faster chargers here that are not popping up on the vehicle's readout. And right here, West Michigan International CCS1, 10 plug score. Let's just, let's manually put in the address because no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in the R1S. What do we got? Alexa, Navigate to 5380 International Drive, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Getting directions to 5380 International Drive, Kalamazoo, Michigan.
That seems like a reasonable route to me. Says we're going to get there with 40 miles remaining. Let's do it. Throw the vehicle in drive. We've got really nice and intuitive one-pedal driving in the R1S. You can turn it up to a high mode, which really cranks the vehicle down. I could pretty much only see that being the best route if you had the vehicle really loaded up heavy, or even better with a trailer on it. But I like the standard regen. It makes it so if I'm coming up to the stop sign, for example, just release my foot off the pedal, comes nice and smooth to a stop. They've calibrated that really nicely. I don't think I've used the brake pedal once since we got in the vehicle over the last 200 miles, so that's saying something. Now let's switch the map back over to our 3D. Okay, very nicely done. Nice pleasant blinker sounds. And like I said, I had the vehicle up in high ride height, and it would automatically lower at 45 miles per hour. But I'm going to press this button and go down to standard ride height. And in fact, oh, it actually shows how high the vehicle is then at that ride height. That's kind of cool. It's 30. I like that. I'm going to go all the way down to low ride height, a tad bit more aerodynamic. You can also adjust the ride feel, the regen levels, the stability control, and the drive modes, all from this nifty little screen. For drive modes, we've got all-purpose, snow, all-terrain, and then with the performance mode, we get sport and soft sand. A little bit surprising we don't have an eco mode. However, I heard from a reputable automotive journalist that Rivians were having a little bit of an issue where owners were driving around in eco mode regularly, and that was disabling one of the electric motors, I believe the rear one, and therefore it was wearing out their front tires very quickly because all of the driving, so all the propulsion and all of the regen was being done with the front wheels, therefore wearing out the tires more quickly. So maybe Rivian got rid of eco mode to just say, look guys, the vehicle's economical enough in all purpose, and maybe they're balancing out the power better. And the cool thing with Rivian is it's such a young company, but it's got so much engineering behind it and money behind it that the products are going to rapidly improve year over year. So now we're in the second generation of R1S and R1T, and all of these improvements are going to be so noticeable year over year. Even with 16% state of charge, vehicle's still plenty peppy. Oh, it just said shifting to all-wheel drive. Oh, so apparently it was already running in front-wheel drive, and I must have enabled all-wheel drive by mashing the accelerator. Okay. Throughout the rest of the week, I'm going to put the R1S to the test with higher speed highway driving. We're going to put it to the test off-road. I'm going to try to find some snowy 2-tracks and see if we can play around with it a little bit, because even in this not necessarily off-road oriented spec, it's still supposed to be plenty capable. The Topher has told me that the R1, I think it was an R1S he had, was one of probably the second most capable off-road vehicle stock that he had ever tested, and that wasn't a full off-road spec as well. That was something, I don't think it was this one, but I think it was a tri-motor maybe with some all-terrain tires on it. So I'm curious to get this off-road as well, play around with it. Yeah, so I'm gonna get to the charger, plug it in. We're gonna take a look at some of the charging speeds, how long it's gonna take us, do some sound system testing, and I'll catch up with you later on. Here we are at the end of 2024, and charging a non-Tesla electric vehicle is still a terrible experience, especially for anyone who isn't very familiar and competent with how electric vehicle charging works. So you saw here earlier in the video that I brought up on the Rivian screen list of chargers, and it didn't even list this one. So I brought up PlugShare, and it gave me the location. It has tons of great reviews. So I get here, and on the PlugShare app, it says 480 kilowatts of max power, which I figured was too high to be realistic, but I figured that meant what one station was able to provide total and then split in half. So we'd be looking at about 240 max kilowatts. And I was like, oh, that's great. That's more powerful than I'm going to get from most of the other level 3 chargers around here. Well, no, turns out it's only 180 kilowatts, which should still be plenty fine. Okay, great. So I get here, and there's no credit card scanner. I have to install yet another app and put in my credit card information. It doesn't take my credit card properly, so I use Google Pay. Okay, finally got all that set up. Plug in the big unwieldy CCS1 charger adapter into the vehicle, plug it in, and now mind you, I understand that electric vehicles charge most quickly between 20% state of charge and 80% state of charge. I was at 6% state of charge, so I expected not max charging speeds as it ramped up. So we plugged in, and the vehicle got up to about 75 kilowatts, and I've converted that from this little range readout as well as what the charger was telling me its max power was providing. So we're running at, what is that, about between a half and a third of the charger's maximum capacity, and well under, less than a third of what the vehicle is capable of taking, because the vehicle should be able to charge at up to, I think it's about 225 kilowatts. And yet here we are at 27% state of charge, 36 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and we're still only charging at about 75 kilowatts, which means I'd still have to sit here for another hour and 53 minutes, the vehicle estimates, to get up to full. And I would imagine still about an hour or so to get up to 80%. Much, much less than I was expecting. And again, I'm somebody who's familiar with cars and electric vehicles. What about someone who just leased an R1S and decided to give electric vehicles a shot? They'd be sitting here for so much longer than they planned on. Not only is it charging very slowly, but at 19% state of charge, all of a sudden it just stopped. I don't know why. It only used about $8 worth of charging, so it shouldn't have been a card issue. I was able to restart it with the same payment method, but it just stopped. So if I had gone in and used the bathroom or something and was chilling out in the lounge in there, I would have had to come back out and restart it. Very frustrating. So I'm going to abandon this charger, and we're going to go check out the Tesla Supercharger that's 11 minutes away, and we're going to try out this Lectron Adapter. Now, technically, this is sponsored. They sent this to me for free, but I was the one who reached out to Lectron. I've used Lectron products before. I've been satisfied with them, and since Rivian wasn't providing an adapter here, I wanted to have this option, because Tesla Superchargers are some of the most reliable charger situations here in 2024. Thank you for choosing Lectron. Scan the QR code to access the user manual. We've got an extended warranty. That's nice. I think this is about $180 or so if you use the code. I think we have a Daily Motor code I'll post below. And here we are. Supposed to be able to plug the charger from the Tesla Supercharger into there, and then this into the vehicle. I guess it'll be like that. It actually feels nice. I was expecting it to feel a little bit more chintzy, but it's very solid. It's heavy. All right. So this should be ready to go. I am going to stop the charging session because we still haven't sped up, and we're going to drive over to the Tesla Supercharger. All right, not what I expected to do today. Okay, this is going to be my first time using a Tesla Supercharger without a Tesla. So what I've heard and what I've read is that these cables are actually a little bit short to reach over to the other side of most of these vehicles. And I wanted to use this spot because if I don't, it'll take up a spot. Technically, a Tesla would charge here, and then its charger is going to be on the back left, so that one should be for this. This spot should be for this charger. But let's see here. Yeah, so that's not going to reach. So I'm actually going to have to take up that space, which is a little unfortunate, but such is the reality, I suppose. Now, I've heard that newer superchargers are going to have slightly longer cables, and those should be able to accommodate these vehicles better. Fortunately, the Supercharger is not very busy. I can't imagine I would be a super popular person if it were, but I am trying to not take up one that somebody else is on so that the load share is better. We are going to unplug that, plug into Lectron Adapter. There we go. Ooh, it's a very solid click. And then plug it into the vehicle. I'm going to hop back in the car. See, it says starting already. Theoretically, I need to start it from the Tesla app. Oh, it's already charging. Oh man, this must be hooked up to the Rivian account or something like that. I didn't have to do anything. Huh. That's pretty cool. Now let's see what sort of speeds we're going to get up to. Oh, and it's telling me that the cost amount right there as well. Ah, but now see, this is interesting. Oh, there we go. Now our speeds are picking up. Look at that. Oh, much better. Okay. This is more what charging should be like. So, if you have yourself an electric vehicle, and it's not a Tesla, get yourself one of these adapters, and then charge how charging should be. I literally just plugged the car in, and mind you, this must be, like I said, paired up to Rivian's account. They must have it set up with the Tesla app or something like that. But look at this, 426 miles per hour of charging. Now 467, 485. Holy cow. We're up to almost 500 miles of charging in an hour. Look at that, 565 there. It just keeps going up. Ah, this is so much better. 565, 585, 580. When will it end? This is much, much better. Okay, so as I was saying, get yourself an adapter, whether you get it from Rivian or your other cars company, or like I said, use the code Daily Motor below. Get yourself one from Lectron. It's working very, very well. This is going to come into handy so much throughout our trip, already proving to be a much smoother experience than using one of those random brand level 3 chargers. And now I'm going to go in, use the restroom, and get my pregnant wife some prunes because she texted me asking for them. We are just under 500 miles down in the Rivian R1S, and I'm really glad that I am spending my first meaningful time, I should say, in a Rivian as an extended trip, because the car is different enough from so many other conventional vehicles on the market that it takes a long time to really first understand, and then get familiar with, and then get comfortable with so many of the aspects of the car in order to properly evaluate it. So whether it's the navigation, whether it's the climate controls, whether it's the lock and unlock, the radio, everything is a little bit different, and I'm glad that I'm not just getting just a few days in the car and just reporting back, this is annoying, this doesn't work well, this is a great example of how to do things, yes, no, or the other. I'm actually getting to soak with the car and spend time with it and get a proper idea on really how I think of it. There are certainly annoyances, and most of it seems to boil down to general polish. I understand that this is still essentially a startup company. Rivian's been making vehicles for a while now, but they're still so new compared to everybody else on the market. And they really haven't produced that many cars compared to most other manufacturers on the market. And I also understand that the ethos of these cars is supposed to be an outdoor kind of adventure sort of vehicle, but realistically, a lot of people are going to be buying them just in order to get a truck or an SUV that allows you to go full electric and get a good amount of mileage. And not only that, but buy American at the same time. But little aspects like this incessant rattle that I keep getting from the lower door panel over here, or a different rattle that comes through when the vehicle's cold back here near the B-pillar, or little tweaks like not having a camera rearview mirror or a fairly substandard sound system for a $100,000 vehicle. Like I said, some of the things are merely observations, some of them are more annoyances, some of them are just considering the fact that for $100,000, you should be expecting a certain degree of refinement, and you're simply not getting it in this product. Now, that's not to say every $100,000 vehicle out there is more refined than this. I still think this is better put together than the last Range Rover that I had, and Range Rover's been around plenty long enough to know how to make vehicles properly. So it's not necessarily that Rivian doesn't know what they're doing. It's just, when compared to some of the other vehicles on the market, it's by no means class leading, and I cannot evaluate the vehicle in a bubble. I have to consider the price, regardless of what the intended purpose of the car is. On top of that, I still can't get over the no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Right now is a perfect example. We're navigating using the Rivian's built-in system. Now, I took the nav screen away there because I didn't want to show the destination address, but it's also showing what our charge level is going to be when we get there, and it's got a lot of nice built-in aspects to navigating with a system that's so well integrated into the vehicle. That being said, I just want to use Google Maps, and I just want to use Waze, and I just want to use YouTube Music. And all of those things are inaccessible to me in this system. So I got this nice, beautiful screen well integrated into the dash, and yet I can't. And so I've got a navigation right now that's telling me to take a right back there, and then reorganizing and saying, okay, 0.4 miles, take a right, when I know darn well if I were using Google Maps right now to navigate, it would give me route options, and it would say, okay, you can go this way, just keep going straight, and it's going to be maybe 3 minutes longer, but would you rather do that? And I could just simply hit yes, good to go. Also, there was an accident about half an hour back, and Google Maps and Waze would have both told me that was coming up, Of course, the Rivian system wasn't able to account for that. So it's frustrating that in such a technologically advanced vehicle, we're getting subjugated to only using this built-in system. And if you're some sort of audiophile, it's really disappointing because there's really not a good way to get high quality music into this system. It means I'm using Bluetooth for pretty much all of my streaming, and for those of you who care about high bitrate audio, you know Bluetooth is not an ideal or elegant solution. Now, you saw earlier in the video that I was able to use the Tesla Supercharger in order to get our first charge, and that was awesome. It worked super, super well. However, not all Tesla Superchargers can support non-Tesla vehicles. It has to be some of the newer Tesla Superchargers. So that meant that on our way up here to northern Michigan, there were older Tesla Superchargers that we were not able to use, and I had to use an Electrify America station. Not the end of the world, but the EA station was more expensive than the Tesla station, and at least as the way the car was set up now, I wasn't able to simply plug in and have it start charging. That's probably something that could have been set up, but Rivian seems to have set the car up to work with the Tesla stations, plug and charge, but not the EA stations. Another frustration is the highway driving assist, or whatever Rivian calls it. Let's see. It is highway assist. Only works on divided highways. And I understand that. That's probably when you, depending on the confidence that Rivian has in their system, that's probably the best place to use it. However, most vehicles, even something all the way down to something like a $28,000 Hyundai Elantra or Honda Civic, have some sort of lane keeping assist that's functional on all sorts of roads. As long as it can see two lines like this, you can enable it and it'll keep it in the center of the lane. The Rivian has a degree of lane keeping, but you have to get thoroughly out of the lane. And look, it's not even working right now at lower speeds, but at about 55 miles per hour or so, it'll vibrate the wheel a little bit and it'll kind of indicate that I'm coming out of the lane, but it barely nudges you. And I understand you should be driving, full paying attention, everything like that. However, again, comparing to all of the other vehicles on the market, even Teslas, you can utilize Tesla Autopilot on a 55 mile an hour road. You can utilize Hyundai's active lane keeping and Honda's and BMW and Mercedes, pretty much name any other brand, and you've got a confident active lane centering functionality, especially at six figures, on standard two-lane roads, and you can't use the Rivians. So that's frustrating to me, because the highway assist actually works really, really well when you're able to use it. We were able to do hundreds of miles on this trip, just letting the car do the driving and me kind of sitting back here and just occasionally touching the wheel. That was nice. Now, I'm going to go over more of the things I do like about the R1S as we get closer to the end of the video, because this is kind of just me getting my frustrations out as they're fresh in my mind. But there are a lot of things I do like about the car. I think there's a lot of really well integrated technology. I mean, even look right in front of us right now. We're getting the map over here on the left, along with cars around us and a nice digital speed and navigation instructions and media. I mean, there's a lot of good about the car. And in this part of the trip, we should be able to let more of the off-roadiness and kind of adventure spec of the vehicle sing out and sing its praises, because we're getting up into more snow and kind of more environment for that. And that's really where the Rivian is supposed to shine. We will talk about efficiency here real quick while we're at a stop. Over nearly 500 miles and 8.5 hours of driving, we have averaged 2.06 miles per kilowatt hour. So super rough math. If you're coming from something like a Tesla, that would probably be about 475 watt hours per mile. Not fantastic, but also not too terrible, considering we've been running on 70 to 75 mile an hour speed limit roads, which means I've been doing about 74 to 80 miles per hour, keeping up with traffic. And it's been cold. And this is a fairly large vehicle. So I'm not going to say that those are necessarily bad numbers. However, I will say that it's a little bit lower than that EPA figure. And that does actually bring me to another small annoyance. This little mileage readout right here never adapts to the way that you are driving. So even though we've been driving at highway speeds, and I know that this 300 miles is no way accurate, and even the car knows that based on the navigation, it's not giving me any sort of adapted range readout. It's a little bit more of the Tesla strategy of just show what the EPA mileage would be right here. If you were to drive in EPA mixed driving, that's what you could probably get on the rest of the battery. But a lot of other electric vehicles will adapt their range figures based on how you've been driving recently, what the temperatures are at, etc. Some of the best setups are like in my wife's Chevy Bolt EUV. it shows you an adapted range figure based on how you've been driving, as well as a sort of a better case and a worse case range figure. So it might say 170 miles in the middle and then 210 on the top and 140 on the bottom. So you kind of know, okay, based on where I'm at now, the type of driving I've been doing, if I continue to drive that way, this is what I can expect. If I improve my driving, this is what I can expect. And if I decrease it, this is what I can expect. So that's a more elegant but yet straightforward way of giving you more useful information. Whereas if someone new were to hop into this Rivian, they would think, oh, I've got 300 miles, but I know from driving on the highway, that's really only about 200 miles. So there are better ways and more honest ways that Rivian can go about that. Because I understand, yeah, it's cold and we're driving at higher speeds. You're gonna get worse range for that. But give me a more realistic, if not pessimistic, range figure in front of me. And you've seen how I've been driving over the last 500 miles. Show me that. It'll be a little bit more honest. That would be nice for everybody. But we are nearly to our next stop, and as I said earlier in the video, if we had our at-home charger, we really wouldn't need to be doing much more level 3 or level 2 charging. We could charge level 1 at home and pretty much be heading out for our next leg with a full charge. But because we don't have that on us, we're going to have to take advantage probably of a little bit of extra DC fast charging. Maybe we'll hit some level 2s throughout the next few days. You can see the screens have turned themselves over to dark mode. But regarding our 4.5 hours of driving here today, pretty straightforward. I mean, we showed up to the EA charger, we plugged in, we let it do its charging, we went and got some lunch, and then we hopped back in and kept going. So no complaints there, and we will catch up with you on the next leg. Wrapping up our northern Michigan part of the trip here with the R1S, and as you can see around us, disappointing that we did not get the snow that I was hoping for, but that doesn't mean that we haven't been able to have some fun with the R1S. My brother Nathan and I went out and did some snow driving, which admittedly, the tires that are fit to this model, these all-season tires, are not very great in the snow. I mean, they're designed to get as much range as possible on the road, and I understand that, so I'm not going to fault the car. They make all-terrain tire options, and you can put your own tires on the car. But the way that the motor handled traction off-road was still really impressive. The motors, I should say. And having the air suspension that gives us so much more ground clearance it's great. I mean, it really makes for a fantastic off-roading vehicle. And then there's the fact that you can bring up this screen here and see all of this information about the vehicle. You get to see where power is going to which wheels and from which motors and what angles your wheels are pointed at. And then on top of that, you see motor temperatures and you see elevation, high and low. You see trip information, compass, tire pressure monitoring. I remember when we had the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, that didn't even have an altimeter in it, an elevation readout. And I was like, really? You've got this high-tech, very capable off-road vehicle and you don't even have that info? That was certainly disappointing. But here we are on a dirt road. Still plenty of traction available, even right here in all-purpose mode. And it soaks up the bumps really nicely. I've got the ride and soft feel. Here we are moving into more of a seasonal road. I'm going to leave it in all-purpose for now, but we will turn our ride height to high. And this is kind of cool. It shows you exactly how much ground clearance you have going and what your roof clearance is as well. I can see I can crest over these sticks. I could even bring up the camera if need be. See around me. Yep, we got this on the front. Ooh, all right. This is actually a big stick here. This is a log. Crap. I don't think we're gonna make it past that. I wonder if I could hop out and move it. Oh, I knew I didn't. I knew I should have wore different shoes. All right, let's see what we can do. Let's hop out. This is lifestyle, right? And in the meantime, I'm gonna switch this into all-terrain with the highest off-road mode, because that actually takes a little bit of time to get it up to 14.1 inches of ground clearance. For some reason, the air suspension adjusts quickly between low, standard, and high, but to go to the highest, it takes a little time. Oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to move this. Do we think the R1S can get around that way? I'm almost tempted to try it because we've got a good amount of approach and departure angle and ride height. I think if we come this way, I actually think we can clear this. This is gonna be, I wish I had Nathan here. We're just gonna pull it up and we're gonna see what happens. This is what we do here at Daily Motor. We keep it real. And gosh darn it, if Rivian claims this is gonna be as capable of an off-road vehicle as they do, sometimes you gotta put it to the test. So let's just get to, I could go for some of those, maybe you get this in more of the all-terrain packages where it shows where your tires are. I'm just gonna pull it right here. See if we can crack that. What I don't want to have happen is for it to fly back up and hit the car. Oh, look at that, totally clear there. What I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna see where this log would come up behind. And you know, I could get it much higher up there actually. I think that might be my safest move. Bring the vehicle up. Yeah, just up to kind of right here. I think we're gonna do it. This is almost cracked right there, so the whole thing might snap and break the side of the car. Yep, I think we're gonna do it. I think we're doing it. Ugh. I'm gonna come a little bit over here. We're over. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what 14 inches of ground clearance gets you from an air suspension. Look at that. That's awesome. Good job, R1S. Huh. I don't know of too many vehicles that I would have been able to do that with, just right out of the showroom floor. And away we go to see what else is on this road. Now, you can only go up to 20 miles per hour in this highest suspension mode. I think that's okay. I mean, it's more for doing what we just did there and less for higher speed rolling. But in this type of trail, I mean, you're going slow anyway. And that's essentially all this is. Well, cool. That actually worked out really nicely because I just gained some respect for the R1S and its abilities. Because realistically, people are probably not buying this to go out and do crazy rock crawling all the time. But that's a very real world sort of situation where, what if you're taking this out to your cabin, out to your second home, out to an Airbnb or something like that, and it's got a long driveway and it does have a tree down like that, and you're like, oh man, what are we gonna do? It's not like we got a train saw in the back because we just got here. Having that air suspension and being able to lift itself up and be capable like that, that's very real world usable in that sort of situation. It's a lot of off-road ability is more just preparing for the unknown. And not only are there very few vehicles that could have done that right off the showroom floor with all-season tires, but then you get up to a twisty road like this, you step in here, you go into sport mode, vehicle lowers itself down, firms up the ride, and is remarkably fun to throw around despite it being a 6,000 plus pound vehicle. And at 25% state of charge, it still takes off. I'm really impressed by how much power we still have go through some of these twistier corners, and by no means is this a sports car, but it can seriously put a smile on your face on some twistier roads. And that's just where some of the downsides of owning an electric vehicle, like having to track down chargers and have them not work, are subsidized by a lot of the upsides of an electric vehicle, like being able to raise yourself up that high and then lower yourself down that low without messing with drivetrain components in the same way. And not only that, but aside from engaging the rear motor more and a little bit of extra wind resistance, there's not much of an energy penalty for me driving quickly and spiritedly, as opposed to if we were lugging around a 665 horsepower gasoline motor. Then it's going to be less efficient getting on it hard, making those blips and blasts of acceleration, downshifting and everything, and then using friction brakes in order to slow the vehicle back down. Whereas with this, I'm getting this big heavy vehicle up to speed with electricity and then slowing it back down with most of my electricity as well. Let's see if I can do all of this twistier section of road without ever touching the brake pedal. You can feel the car feed itself a little bit of extra power once the wheels are straightened out and it knows that it can safely do so. It's cool, it really is. The bandwidth of this vehicle has been most impressive to me. And that's what excites me about Rivian, is that I am more willing to forgive interior rattles and oddities within the infotainment system, because those are remediable. Those are aspects that, yes, admittedly, if I were to purchase a $100,000 vehicle right now, I'd be a bit disappointed in, but it doesn't take away my confidence in the company, because those are things that are improved year over year. What does inspire confidence is the fact that this car provides such a cool and unique experience from behind the wheel and from its capabilities. That is the core element of the vehicle that provides value to the customer. I actually had a really cool opportunity before starting my filming today of coming across another Rivian R1S owner at the country club up here. And you do not see many electric vehicles up in northern Michigan. You really don't. So I was really surprised to pull into the parking lot and see her just leaving with her R1S. And so I flagged her down a little bit, and she kindly lowered her window and allowed me to ask her some questions. This was her second R1S that she had owned. They just recently got this facelifted model. She appreciates a lot of the improvements about the newer one compared to their 2022 or 23. She wasn't quite sure which one it was. But mostly they upgraded to this one because of the max range battery pack. I understand that. She lives all the way down in Chicago and vacations up here in Harbor Springs. And she actually has access to many other vehicles. She said her husband's a car enthusiast and they have a fleet, as she put it, plenty of gas vehicles. But recently they've started taking the R1S on this Chicago to northern Michigan trip, and she very much enjoys it and prefers it over other cars. And she said they've owned Range Rovers, they've owned BMWs, and she likes the Rivian. She loves driving it around Chicago, around town, and then has realized that road tripping it isn't that bad either, because like I've said in a lot of other electric vehicle reviews, even though you have to stop for a little longer and charge and maybe stop a little bit more frequently than you'd like, when you have a family, you have multiple people in the vehicle, it's nice to stop and relax and stretch your legs and maybe check out a place you wouldn't have before and grab a meal and then continue on. It's a different way to travel, but it's more relaxing. And she said that they were able to fit 4 adults in the vehicle plus 2 dogs and all their luggage for a week-long trip up here in northern Michigan, all in the R1S using the frunk and the trunk area. She said they have a cargo box that they used on their previous one, but they didn't need it for this trip. A rooftop cargo box, I should say. And it was nice to talk to a real-life owner like that and actually see, oh, okay, this is somebody who has experienced many vehicles, could purchase many different options, and chooses to put her money down on an R1S and spend her time in it and use it in a real-world road trip like this. So that shows me that Rivian is really onto something here. And I gotta say, despite this being significantly more expensive than other electric vehicle options, other 3-row SUV options, there's nothing else quite like it on the market, and that's why I'm excited by Rivian. What I'm not 100% excited about is the fact that we are going to be running into the next level 3 charger on fumes, and that is for 2 main reasons. One, We talked about before how I don't have access to an at-home charger. We would have plenty of extra juice in here for me to shoot more and then get more comfortably to our next charging destination if I had an at-home charger like I was supposed to. And then also, there's one level 3 charger up here in northern Michigan in Petoskey, and it's an off-random network called Blink. It's not EVgo, it's not Electrify America, it's not Rivian, anything like that. It's a Blink charger, and it said it was working on the Blink app, and I got to it, tried both ports. One of them wouldn't even initialize. It never got to the charging process. Charged 2 different credit cards, that wasn't the issue. And then the other one would start charging, the vehicle recognized it, it put in about 0.34 kilowatt hours of juice, and then stopped both times. So what a waste. I spent 8% state of charge to go all the way over there into Petoskey to use this charger. Alyssa and I were going to have a nice meal and get the vehicle pretty significantly charged up and then come back. But then, nope. Again, screwed by a non-Tesla charger network charger. So instead we were able to finally find a level 2 charger, which fortunately was charging at about 11 kilowatts, which was able to get us enough charge essentially to offset the trip back into Petoskey and back over here. But again, it's just, if you are not planning on charging your electric vehicle at home, carrying around a level 1 at least charger, still don't recommend it. But I fully recognize if we had an at-home charger, even at level 1 speeds, would have been a lot more useful on this trip. But we've still got about 300 some miles in front of us. How much have we done so far? Let me get over here and here. 645 miles done on the trip. So we'll catch up with you on the highway. A few quick thoughts while we're sitting here charging up at an Electrify America, cooking along nicely, how level 3 charging should be, where you simply plug in, tap your card, and the vehicle starts charging. Having a little snack action here, courtesy of the Meijer. Very nicely redone Meijer here in Gaylord, Michigan. And I was thinking, Alyssa and I have stopped here many, many times over the years, especially to utilize those Tesla chargers over there. And I kind of don't mind that the Rivian, at least from what I've been able to tell so far, doesn't really have any sort of entertainment suite built into it. It's not like we've got Netflix to stream. I mean, maybe if we go over here to video, what do we have? Okay, Google Cast. That's actually pretty smart. You can play video right from your phone or other connected devices here, or we've got YouTube built in. I appreciate and don't mind that Rivian didn't put much effort into engineering some advanced gaming suite in here or something with like the, everyone say hi to Alyssa and little Eve. A lot of the electric vehicles, obviously Tesla started it, but then you got like the Mach-E and the Mercedes and all these thought they needed to copy Tesla and try to create these little gimmicky games within the infotainment. But pretty much any time that Alyssa and I have stopped to charge for a while, first of all, we usually go and leave the car and do something, stretch our legs. And then after that, we use our phones. I mean, we've got 2 cell phones, 2 tablets, and a laptop all in this car. We don't need to utilize the vehicle's built-in stuff just while we're sitting here. And yeah, it's been convenient before to watch an episode of something on the Tesla screen, but it's certainly not something that I'd want Rivian putting money and time and effort into engineering, when instead they could just be making the car drive better and work better in a day-to-day scenario. So I kind of like that.
What are your thoughts on utilizing the entertainment in the center here if you have little kids in the car? Imagine a toddler on one side, a smaller kid, and maybe a 1-year-old in a car seat on the other.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'd say you could pose the argument that it would be nice to have and a nice feature, but also presumably, especially if you're coming out of a car that didn't already have that feature, you're going to have your kids set up as well. They're going to have tablets, they're going to have their own entertainment functionality, and probably a DVD players in the back or something if you're in a van or something like that. So
okay, I'll raise you this scenario then.
Okay.
4-hour road trip.
Yep.
Daring to do it in an electric car with a family of 4 small children.
Mm-hmm.
However, they've been on their tablets the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
They're dead.
Mm-hmm.
They're charging.
Mm-hmm.
The kid's upset that they can't use their iPad or anything because it's charging and they need to charge it up. So then you have a scenario in which another screen could be utilized.
I don't think you can watch video on this, well, while you're moving. They have to be stopped. And also we've got two USB Type-Cs in the back. So those should be able to charge up the tablet.
There you go. Okay.
And yeah, similar to like the newer Teslas, the Model S and Model X have a screen back there that video games can be played on. Which again, cool. But if that gets dated or something like that, or there's not the game you want, kids are just gonna have a Switch. You know, there's better tools for that. It'd be one thing if we're talking about GM or something, but Rivian's got limited resources. I'm glad they're not wasting it trying to create gimmicks in the infotainment. Instead, they're creating real-world usable drivability. So, yeah. Good thing to know if you are road tripping in a Rivian is that the highway driving assist really doesn't like if you take your seatbelt off. And I only know that because I was going to take my jacket off, and oftentimes you're driving, your cruise control set and stuff, you gotta take your seatbelt off quick, take your jacket off, and then put your seatbelt back on. However, doing that disabled the highway driving assist until my next drive. So presumably I'm gonna have to come to a stop. I don't know if I'm just gonna be able to only put it in park, or if I'm gonna have to take my seatbelt off or what, or I shut the car off or what in order to get the highway driving assist to work again. I understand that they need to be real sticklers about that because you don't want people just getting out of their seat while the car is sort of driving for itself, but it is a bit frustrating that I can't just re-enable it or maybe promise not to take my seatbelt off again. So, bummer. We are 840 miles into our just under 1,000-mile total trip here with the Rivian R1S. The sun is down. It's the last day of our trip. Technically, we're here tomorrow, but we fly out early in the morning. And I'm hoping I get a little bit of last-minute filming time with the car, but you guys know how travel days are. I mean, getting to the airport and stuff, it just might not make sense to do any filming as we rush to catch our flight. So I wanted to wrap up some of my thoughts I've had so far with the car, and maybe we'll do a final digest once we get back home. I'm not sure. First off, I know I've mentioned this a few times throughout the video, but I've enjoyed reviewing the R1S so much more than so many other vehicles. There we go. That's something I've seen throughout the week. Adaptive high beam's not working. Service soon. So that's going to get into some of my thoughts as well with the car. But I have enjoyed reviewing the R1S because it's different enough that it's interesting. So many new cars I drive, even electric ones, even new Trailblazers for their, not the Trailblazer model, but a Trailblazer in its category. Maybe something like the Silverado EV. Yeah, I enjoy reviewing those, but they're not very unique or exciting, even though they might have a new element to them. This R1S feels like an entirely new way of driving you and your family around a lot of places and in a lot of different environments and in a lot of different ways. And yes, some of the ways that you interact with the vehicle are going to require a relearning, but I find that fun. I find that exciting, and some of the things work well. Some of them I think are just different for different sake and aren't necessarily better. But all things considered, the Rivian R1S is a good car. It's a good family SUV. It has quirks and it has refinement issues, but those are the things that can be improved upon year over year. The car doesn't need an entire reworking from ground up, and I find that encouraging. But that little pop-up we got here live was a great example of just one of the many things that haven't been polished in the vehicle and kind of come together to be a general frustration. For me, someone who's okay with being an early adopter, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my vehicles and my technology having a little bit of unrefinement for the sake of pushing the edge of technological innovation and trying new things and thinking outside the box. But there are certainly going to be customers who are going to be turned off by getting pop-ups that their adaptive headlights aren't working properly, and they've got 5,000 miles on the car. Why isn't that working? Or I've had multiple situations throughout the trip where I go to back up and the rear cross traffic alert chimes at me, even though I'm in a driveway, there's nobody coming. And like I said, the highway driving assist has limited functionality when it comes to using on non-divided highways or certain situations in which it decides that it's not very competent. Now, that being said, it's a really good highway assist. I've done most of this highway trip just letting the car take itself through. It doesn't feel like a teenager driving the car. It feels like a very confident and calm driver, and I've appreciated that about it. I just wish it's just the active lane keeping itself, that functionality were expanded upon. Some other thoughts between Alyssa and I throughout our time with the car: she would appreciate, as a shorter person, having an extra grab handle up here around the A-pillar. It's just a little hard for her to get in and out of, even with the adaptive air suspension in its lower position. She's just a smaller person, and that's going to be a little bit true of any full-size SUV like this. They're going to be harder to get in and out of, but that's something simple that Rivian could do, is add a little bit of a grab handle right here, make it a little bit easier to get to, because up here is pretty far. However, she did point out that she liked the comfort of the seats, even though they're a little bit firm. They've provided a lot of comfort throughout the week. Also, the seat heating has worked really well, although I pointed out earlier that I don't like how the level 1 is too warm. She's appreciated how it's kept her warm throughout the trip. We also really like the layout of the vehicle. We've got some road trip snacks, our various things down there, and a half gallon of milk, because pregnant women do like drinking milk. We've liked having the wireless device chargers, both of them right here, so we just come right in, flop our phones down, and they're both charging. And heat hasn't seemed to be too much of an issue with these wireless chargers. It's probably because it hasn't been very warm in the car in general. The sun hasn't been beaming down on them. So overall, a lot of the functionality of this being and car has worked out well for us, and we've done some pretty significant road trips, and this one has been a more positive one in terms of general creature comforts. Now, I don't want to make this video too much about what it's like to road trip an EV in general. However, I do at least want to talk a little bit about the charging situations and the cost that goes into that. It should be well known at this point, that if you're not regularly charging your electric vehicle at home, whether it's because of road tripping or it's because you don't have a charger at home or whatnot, it's going to cost you a lot more than if you're charging at home. And in the case of a large, boxy, big crossover like this, it is more expensive than gasoline. That's not some sort of sensationalized, right-wing, sort of anti-EV sort of clickbait title. No, it does cost more in most environments for you to use level 3 fast charging with your electric vehicle, especially larger ones like this that aren't very aerodynamic, than it would if you had an equivalent gasoline car. Part of that is due to how gasoline vehicles are relatively more efficient when cruising at highway speeds, and some of it comes down to just how much DC fast charging costs here in 2025. It's been an average of 50 cents per kilowatt hour around here in Michigan, and your average electricity costs is going to be about 15, maybe 20 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on if you're in time of use rate or something like that. So you're talking about more than double, 2.5 times the charging costs to charge on the road. So we've been getting 2.04 miles per kilowatt hour over 850 miles here in the R1S. And my very quick math tells me that at $3 per gallon and at 50 cents per kilowatt hour, this car, road tripping it, would be equivalent to driving a vehicle that gets 12 miles per gallon in terms of raw cost. And that's not great. I mean, if you plan on purchasing an electric vehicle, a larger one like this, and doing a lot of road tripping with it, you need to be aware that that's how much it's going to cost you to be relying on level 3 fast chargers. Now, if you had an Electrify America plan, it might be a little bit cheaper. Maybe the Rivian network is a little bit cheaper. I do know most of the Tesla chargers that we stopped at were more like 47 cents per kilowatt hour. But it's still a lot, and it's still a lot more than you'd pay charging at home. Now, a vehicle like this, getting to take advantage of some speeding up and slowing down and charging at home, using it in more real-world city sort of driving situations, it's going to be vastly more cost-effective than a gasoline car. It'd probably be more like driving a car that gets 40 miles per gallon at $3 per gallon. But I know that's a lot of numbers kind of thrown at you, but just the what you need to know is how much we've paid in this trip for electricity would be equivalent if we had a vehicle that were getting 12 miles per gallon. And the least efficient, fuel efficient crossovers and SUVs I know of, even big full body on frames, like a Suburban or an Expedition or whatever, those are going to be getting 18 to 20 or so in this sort of environment, driving on the highway. I mean, to be fair, we've been going pretty quick. I've been doing about 80 miles per hour on the higher speed sections of the highway, and then what are we doing, 74 right now because the speedo's off by 1 mile per hour. But just something to know, just something to be aware of. So I'm not saying don't go buy an EV because it's going to cost you more. I'm just saying if you plan on doing primarily highway driving and charging at level 3 fast chargers, it will cost you more. So I am going to have to do a little bit of a final wrap up with the R1S, probably back at home, just so that I can rate it on the Daily Motor leaderboard. I am really curious where it's going to lie, because in general, I'm not a fan of large SUVs, so I think it's going to do better than most of those. I don't think it's going to be up in the top 15 or so, maybe not even top 20, but I have grown to appreciate the car. I've enjoyed this trip with it, and yeah, I think Rivian is onto something really good. I would really like to try the truck at some point. Wrapping up my thoughts after almost 1,000 miles behind the wheel of the R1S, and doing it, I would say, somewhat ironically, in the seat of my 1999 F350 diesel. But overall, I liked the Rivian. I really did, and I appreciated having that time with it in such a real-world, raw sort of environment. There are still difficulties about road tripping and owning an electric vehicle without at-home charging, but overall it is getting better. And with the max battery pack in the R1S that's available now for 2025, it helps alleviate that a good bit as well. I've got some pros and cons I'm just going to jump through after kind of reflecting on my time with the car, and then we'll put it on the Daily Motor leaderboard. First con, rattles in the vehicle. I didn't mention them too much while we were driving because I kind of gotten used to them at that point, but when you're paying 6 figures for a car, to have an incessant door rattle or little other rattles we notice around the cabin, it gets pretty frustrating. And I understand that it's harder to mask sounds in an EV, but still tough at that price point. The software bugs, like I said, having the automatic emergency braking lights come on, the rear cross traffic alerts, and certain situations where elements of the vehicle didn't work properly, and I could tell it was all just electrical and computer and programming rather than anything hardware related. That was disappointing. This is kind of a weird con, but the battery size, the fact that the R1S has 141 kilowatt hours, whereas something like a Silverado EV, or I assume when they come out with the Escalade EV, that's got a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack. It means that, yeah, driving around town, the Rivian's more efficient and can probably get that range figure, the 400 plus that it expects. But when you're just cruising along on the highway and you've got that extra air resistance that's bringing your range figure down, having an extra 60 kilowatt hours in something like a GM product, it's going to provide meaningful real-world range when cruising at higher speeds that you simply don't get in the Rivian. So with that smaller battery size, yes, it's better for day-to-day driving. It's much lighter and it's more efficient. But if you're doing towing or taking long trips on the highway, I wish we just had a large battery pack. The lane keeping and the highway assist, I talked about that. It's frustrating. No places to put water bottles. I wish I mentioned this while we were driving in the car, but I'll maybe jump to some footage here inside the R1S's cabin. You've got 2 cup holders up in front of you here that come out. They don't hold larger water bottles, and then the door pockets don't really hold water bottles without sort of opening them up and putting it in, laying flat. And you'd think for a vehicle that markets itself as such an adventure and lifestyle and outdoorsy sort of vehicle, they'd have more places to put water bottles like that you typically use if you're going out and doing things outdoors. Next, into the pros. The capability of the vehicle. The fact that you can drive it around town, it's not too massive. You can drive it on the highway, you've got that range and that battery, and then you can do off-roading and sporty driving all so well, all in one package. That's really remarkable. There aren't too many vehicles on the market that do all of that and do it that well. Then the performance, the fact that even in this dual motor configuration, you're doing 0 to 60 in as quick of a time as you are, and you can do it even faster with the tri and quad motors. It's really, really impressive. And yeah, it's not something that most people are going to use regularly, but it is fun to have it when you want it and need it. The interior functionality. It's a very well laid out cabin, and most things were thought of pretty well. There were a few little nitpicks, but all things considered, I think they laid out the interior pretty well as a family hauler and larger crossover vehicle. And then lastly, the Rivian boldness. The fact that Rivian is such a new company, and yet they're putting these products out there that are playing with the big boys in the marketplace and holding its own. They're doing well. I'm happy to see the R1S succeeding and the R1T competing against legacy automakers, and they're putting out products and doing it better than people who have companies that have been doing this for decades. And I really commend Rivian for that. But all that being said, it's time to put the 25 R1S on the Daily Motor leaderboard. And I was wondering if it would take the top spot. However, I know that it will not be, but it's still going to be pretty good. So let's see what we got here. Oh, I can tell you this. It's probably my favorite roughly full-size SUV, because those typically do not do very well on the Daily Motor leaderboard. In fact, the last 3 spots are all large crossovers or body-on-frame SUVs. The Range Rover, the QX80, and the GLS 450. I'm going to go just above the Lexus GX. 15th place, right below the BMW X5 and above the Lexus GX. It's right up there with those cars. Obviously a little bit more expensive, but providing an experience that is unique and enjoyable. I quite liked it. So thank you all so much for watching and coming along for that trip. If you want to see more on the R1S, check the link below. I hope to spend more time in more Rivian vehicles soon. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.